Hey guys, so recently the founder of Infosys went viral for suggesting that young people in India should have 70-hour work weeks. But before we get into details, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell if you don't want to miss any of our videos. Okay, so Narayana Murthy, the founder of Infosys, went viral for stating that in order to increase India's productivity, youngsters need to work for 70 hours a week. Here's the clip.
Somehow our youth have the habit of taking not so desirable habits from the West. India's work productivity is one of the lowest in the world. My request is that our youngsters must say, this is my country. I want to work 70 hours a week. You know, this is exactly what Germans and Japanese did after the Second World War.
Yes.
The German leader, he sat down with the German leaders, corporate leaders, and he said, we have to rebuild, and that's your job. We need to work very hard. We need to be disciplined and improve our work productivity. I think unless we do that, what can poor government do? Every government is as good as the culture of the people.
Now, the statements drew a lot of negative reactions. Many people pointed out a few problems with his suggestion. 70 hours of work per week means 12 hours of work a day for 6 days. This intense style of working has a lot of issues, namely reduced productivity, health concerns, no work-life balance, and a lack of long-term sustainability. Critics also stated that it's unfair to expect Indians to work at the same productivity levels for lower pay and standard of living when compared to their foreign counterparts. While there are industries that call for longer working hours, most people agree that working 12 hours a day is impractical and shouldn't be the norm. Even though trends like quiet quitting or bare minimum Mondays seem to have increased in popularity, most people consider it normal to complain about their jobs while simultaneously striving to excel in their roles. However, for some people, even the standard 9 to 5 seems to be too much. Like this girl who went viral for talking about her experience with her first job.
I know I'm probably just being so dramatic and annoying, but this is my first job, like my first 9 to 5 job after college, and I'm in person, and I'm commuting in the city, and it takes me fucking forever to get there. There's no way I'm gonna be able to afford living in the city right now, so that's off the table. Like, fucking duh! If I was able to walk to work, and it'd be fine, but I'm not. So it literally takes me, like, I leave here, like, I get on the train at 7:30, and I don't get home till, like, 6:15 earliest, and then, like, I don't have time to do anything. I want to shower, eat my dinner, and go to sleep. I don't have time or energy to cook my dinner either. Like, I don't have energy to work out. Like, that's out the window. Like, I'm so upset. Oh my god. Nothing to do with my job at all, but just like the 9 to 5 schedule in general is crazy. Being in the office 9 to 5, like if it was remote, you get off at 5 and you're home and everything's fine. But like, I'm not home. It takes me long to get home, and like people that drive to the office, like you don't get off at 5, and I know it could be worse. I know I could be working longer, but like I literally get off, it's pitch black, like I don't have energy. How do you have friends? Like how do you have time to like meet like a guy? I don't know. Like how do you have time for like dating? Like I don't have time for anything, and I'm like so stressed out, and I'm also getting my period, so that's why I'm all emotional. But like, am I so dramatic? It's fine.
Now, she does have a point. Modern work culture has become so hectic and demanding that it's almost impossible to keep up with the demands of the full-time job while trying to maintain some sort of a work-life balance. However, the issues she's raising, such as a lengthy commute, a limited social life, and feelings of exhaustion, were typical experiences prior to the pandemic. The issue is made worse by the recent increase in social media influencers and TikTok dancers who give the impression of making substantial incomes with little effort. This creates unrealistic expectations for people who are not yet accustomed to the demands of a taxing and exhausting work environment. So, is the new generation lazy? Were older generations workaholics? Have we conditioned ourselves to become corporate slaves with no escape? While there might not be clear-cut answers to these questions, the undeniable truth is that work is an inevitable part of life. If we are alive, we must work. So what does the Bible and the church teach about work ethics? For most of us, we look at work as something we do for say 30 to 40 years, then we retire and then finally live our life. Work is a burden that must be done to survive, and once we are done with it, then we can start living. We treat it like a punishment for original sin. But is this what the Bible teaches about work? No, not at all. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. He created the sun, the moon, the stars, and all the living creatures. God was working, and when He created human beings in His image and likeness, He made them work as well. God told man to till and keep, or to cultivate and take care of the garden. If you look at the Hebrew meaning of these words, aboda meaning to work and shamar meaning to guard, we find that they are again used later in the Old Testament to refer to the work done by the Levitical priests in the temple. So long before Adam and Eve were even in the picture, God was at work, and when He created human beings, He allowed them to participate in His nature by virtue of their work. Here's Father Mike Smith explaining this a bit further.
And so we recognize that actually God's original plan for us as human beings, in His image and likeness, is labor. That God makes us, in the garden, He actually reveals that God makes us for labor, for leisure, and for love. Because He makes us for labor, puts us in the garden, now cultivate and care for it. Makes us for leisure, like on the seventh day God rests, and He calls us to enter into rest as well. It makes us for love. Adam and Eve in the garden. God is love, and His very nature is love, and He made us in His image and likeness, which means He made us for love as well. So God makes us for these three things: labor, leisure, and love. And so we recognize that when we labor, we're participating in God's identity, His nature. When we enter into rest, we're sharing in His identity, His nature. And when we love, we're participating and sharing in His very nature, His very identity. The problem, of course, is that the story didn't end in Genesis chapter 2. It goes on to Genesis chapter 3. And in Genesis chapter 3, brokenness entered into the world, right? The sin entered into the world.
So work was a gift that God gave mankind, along with leisure and love, in order to participate in God's nature. However, the joy and satisfaction that man should receive from work was of course distorted due to original sin. What was meant to bring joy brought toil, labor, and frustration. Original sin twisted what was intended for good and made it into something bad. Work can be seen in two ways. On one hand, we often only see its value in terms of money, undervaluing it. On the other hand, we sometimes give work too much importance, making it almost like an idol. It's important to strike a balance, recognizing the importance of work without making it the sole focus of our lives. So how do we strike a balance? How does the Catholic Church ask us to respond to work? Despite the damage caused by original sin, work is still essentially good for man. The Catechism says the primordial value of labor stems from man himself, its author and beneficiary. By means of his labor, man participates in the work of creation. Work united to Christ can be redemptive, and work is for man, not man for work. In his encyclical, Pope John Paul II talks about the goodness of work and its connection to man's dignity. He says that work not only transforms our nature, but makes us even more of a human being. This makes sense when you go back to the commandment in Genesis to till and to keep. The specific Hebrew words used here showed that God calls man to work as a form of worship. Our work brings glory to God and unites us with His nature. So there is inherent dignity in the work and the worker. Saint Josemaria Escrivá said, "Before God, no occupation is in itself great or small. Everything acquires the value of the love with which it is done." The problem is that our modern view of work looks at it as a pure exchange of labor for money. But for the Christian, all that we do, not just a 9 to 5, is a part of our work. Work is not just something to finish and get over with, but it is a means of our sanctification. So who is the best example for the Catholic approach to work? Jesus and the apostles. The gospel of work is best seen in the life of Christ. He understood work better than anyone else. Not only was he a practicing carpenter, his parables and examples were filled with workers from various industries and walks of life. He showed how no matter what field of work you are in, it can be an act of worship to God. This life lesson was again visible in the lives of his apostles, especially in the life of Saint Paul. While traveling to preach the gospel, he also encouraged the apostles to earn their living. He even said, "If anyone will not work, let him not eat." He understood the importance of working diligently and saw work not just as a duty, but as a means of living out the call to follow Christ, seeking no reward from men, but from God. So, work helps us to find meaning and purpose in life. It helps us to provide for our families, contribute to the better betterment of society and to serve and love others. Through our labor, we have the opportunity to both sanctify ourselves and align with the redemptive work of Christ on the cross. St. John Paul II said, "Whatever you do, whether in speech or in action, do it in the name of the Lord Jesus." In union with Jesus Christ, your work and your efforts to transform the world take on the quality of a sacrifice pleasing to God. By offering what earth has given and human hands have made, you prepare the way for God's kingdom. That is the deepest meaning of your labor. So, what do you think about this? Is work a necessary evil or a good gift from God? Are you glorifying God through your work? Let us know in the comments below. And if you like this video, let us know by liking and subscribing to our channel. It helps us a lot. Until next time.